just farmers. We're not a threat. They won't just kill us, will they?
Zach has had this idea in his head for decades. So did that make it feel different working with a director who literally you could go up to with the minutest detail and you'd just have an answer straight away? Did you feel that?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, one of the amazing things about Zach is he's so visual, and I think that he really needs to understand and have like the whole visual concept of how the world is going to come together. So we were all incredibly fortunate, and you know, we had these fairly limited rehearsal periods, one-on-one with Zach, and each of us was sort of taken into his inner sanctum, where it was a room from floor to ceiling, where he had renderings of the entire film on 4 walls, so you could sort of step literally into this universe that he was going to create. And that hour-long or hour-and-a-half long lunch was him walking through and with each of us and telling us and showing us the entire story. So it was, you know, you'd think it would take longer than half an hour to, I mean, an hour and a half to have this entire universe sort of in our brain, but because he had these visual cues, you know, that really was like the extent of it mainly.
And that really helped with, you know, looking at that board, it really helped with each individual characters to really get to the essence of their backstories, right?
And also seeing all these worlds and seeing where you play your part, because we're all just cogs in this very big machine. And I think it was very informative and also reassuring to know that the person guiding this and steering this spaceship, shall we say, was just so embedded in every facet of the world and the characters.
I mean, anything we needed was inside Zach's head. It was like a mine of information. It's interesting, I brought my book with me that I do all my character research and notes, and I take to set with me every day. And I found the first 6 pages filled with notes from my first Zoom with Zach, which really gives me everything that I need. He gave it to me from the first Zoom, and then it was up to me to try and understand the information that he gave me. But it wasn't like usual where I have to kind of keep turning things over to find it in that way. He had it all there, and you know, I'd say to him things like, you know, what's the tattoo all about? You know, what does this mean? And he'd just have an amazing story that was idiosyncratic and just incredible. He is the man. He really is.
That's really special. It's rare.
Yeah. Sometimes people are like, hey, well, let me ask this person or that person, but Zach, as the creator of, it's just like, oh no, here's what it is, here's what we're doing, cool, right? It's all there.
Yeah. Sometimes you just ask him a question to get him going so you can hear about everything that's going on.
Tell me something.
I just want a little bit of a break. Can you just chat to us for a little bit for a while? And Ray, you'd worked with Zach before, obviously, so you sort of knew what you were getting into, that it was like these big physical sets, like it's all there. How does it feel when you're going back to someone and you know exactly how they're going to work and what you can give them?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't know exactly how it was going to work, right? I think every film set, even with the same director, every experience can be different, right? The elements are different, where you're shooting is different. They're just different variables. But I knew there would be one constant in that Zach is who Zach is. And so that's one of those comforting things where you go and you're like, look, no matter what happens, I know it's going to look great. You know, he'll take care of us, make sure that we have everything that we need and the best possible chance for success. And very much like my first feature film was with Zack Snyder, back in 2016. So I took every opportunity I could to just let folks know, like, hey, look, we'll be fine. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. But for you, Mikhail, because it's your first experience with Zach, was there a moment when you were on set and you're like, God, I can't believe I'm in a Zack Snyder film, or like, I wouldn't see this on other big blockbuster movie?
I had seen some big sets before coming on to Rebel Moon, but the scale of what we did here was like blew my mind. I'm thinking of, for example, the set that was to be our village, Veld. You know, it was built against the hill just outside of Los Angeles, and you know, the backdrop of like beyond the wheat fields was this gigantic wall made by using like shipping containers. I think they probably used at least 40 or 50 with the biggest green screen I have ever seen in my life. We will never see a green screen of that size again, ever. You know, but you need a big green screen if you want to put that moon on it. But also the way they did all that, you know, it's just. And I'm a bit of a. I really enjoy the technical side of filmmaking as well, and to see with how much ease Zach and his team pulled that off. It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's such a detailed world because he's built all this world, but there's only so much you could fit into this movie. But I felt through the costumes, especially for Milius, and you could feel the backstory of those characters. So I was wondering, E, when you put that costume on, did it help you get into the character and understand a bit more about their backstory?
Totally. Yeah. The costume designer, Stephanie, was amazing. And she sourced all the different pieces of Milius's costume from different places. I think there was like what do you call it? Like an electrician's belt, and then there was like some slingshot little ball holder on it. Like it was just this crazy like pulled together thing. So like you said, you really do get the idea of like, okay, this is a person on the move, taking what they can get, totally DIY, and that totally informed the sense of the grassroots movement that I think the Blood Axe.
I remember him like really wanting the cape, and I remember being terrified of wearing the cape and not for the cape to not wear me. Like how do you handle the cape? And then him telling me that it all has to do. I thought, you know, for some people it can be like just for visual, you know, purposes, but really for Cora it's because she's the most wanted fugitive in the whole universe. So it was just a way for her to hide with the hoodie. So I like when a piece of costume has a purpose. And same thing, the corset, for example, it could like really define the silhouette, you know, and it could be very aesthetic, but really it's because, you know, she's been beaten up and her body's holding it in, you know, one thread. So it's like, you know, she probably has back issues, and so that is to hold her together, basically. So but I like those details so that are fed by him.
Yeah, I feel everything about Atticus. He's a space Nazi, essentially, if I'm being honest. And that costume, everything about it must feel that way. So when you're wearing that and you're acting, is it difficult to sort of make sure you're not going too far or being like, you are like the villain, but you don't want to be like just a one-note villain, do you really? You want to put more into it.
Of course I don't want to be a one-note villain. I think with, you know, Zach, that's where I'm lucky that he services his villain so much and gives them this kind of there's so much to them. And that was one of the initial things when I read it. I was like, wow, like when does an antagonist get this much of an arc and this much range and opportunity to play? You know, if I was going to get pedantic with you, the costume is actually more First World War Russian than Nazi, but there's obviously clear influences. You know, a lot of my family were killed by the Nazis, so for me, it is obviously a moral dilemma. And I've played a Nazi before, and it's horrible to go and to walk to lunch and look down and see like a swastika, or take my hat off and just see it. It was a really visceral and horrible thing, and really made me think about my grandparents and, you know, multi-generational trauma and all this stuff. So there's like a whole deep side to this, which is separate from the execution of the character, which is, you know, to have devilish fun with this scandalous and horrible character, you know, which is so different from me in real life. But, you know, I was having a lot of fun with him, even though it was a very difficult shoot. He is a lot of fun to play and to inhabit.
Charlie, I read that you actually were approached about a different role in this, but you were more appealed to Kai. Was there a reason? Are you able to share who the original character you might have been playing was, or just?
I would not volunteer that, only, you know, out of respect to the person who ultimately did it. And you know, all of the characters were sort of equally great. I just, you know, sometimes you read the script and are offered a character and you love it, but then you have to go through a process of, you know, really understanding and putting yourself inside that character. I read this and for, you know, another character, but Kai just leapt off the page to me and literally sort of spoke to me in a way like immediately I imagined exactly the version that I ended up acting in the film. So I just thought, I just know this guy, and it's an opportunity to play a sort of archetype that I had always wanted to play. So, you know, luckily Zach was up for it, you know, so had the conversation, said, yeah, I would love to do this, and sort of surprised him on the call and said, listen, I know we're here to talk about this, but can you just give me the ground to like pitch you my version? I didn't even know if this other role had been cast, and he sort of just smiled and said, all right, you sold me, and that was it. So.
Just finally, we know this is part 1 of part 2. I know we don't want to spoil anything from part 2, but for both of you, what are you excited for fans to realise that is still going to come in this? Is there something you can give us as a teaser?
I don't know if we can say so much anything about the story itself, because we would ruin it, but I think the trailer's coming soon, so we'll see details then. But what I can say is that we'll get more context, and we will get to go individually with each and every character deeper to get to know them. I don't think there are, I mean, most of the characters are really well defined. You will get a backstory, that's what I can say. You'll get to really get to know them and why they are the way they are. So the whole group, we get to know them deeper, I think, and more context, essentially.
Yeah, I think that the most important word there is more. You know, it's more. If you enjoy this space opera in part 1, then you're getting more. And it's like, it's so unique that to shoot the 2 movies in a row, them back to back, and they do feel like 2 parts of the same thing. It's not like this feels like, oh, I went off to do another role where I got huge and then had to diet again, and in that time I lost a tooth, and you know, we're all 2 years older or whatever. No, it feels like one piece. So I'm excited for people to see part 1 and 2.
What can we tease?
Obviously more action, wild battles, and a lot more of a much more intimate look at all of the characters that you get to get a taste of in part 1.
Yeah. So in part 1, a lot of these characters are introduced. Part 2, we'll get to know them better.